Well, when Wuthering Heights was first published in 1847, the reviewers weren't quite sure what to make of it. You know, who on earth are these wild characters? Who could have written such a book? One reviewer commented that the author seemed fixated on painful and exceptional subjects. But words like exceptional, unusual, strange especially, come up a lot in the first reviews of Wuthering Heights. And one way that the reviewers dealt with this strangeness was to try to compare the novel to other works of the time, in many cases by writers who are no longer familiar today. We find names like John Bainham and Charles Hooton, for example. But one better-known figure who came up in these comparisons was Walter Scott's son-in-law, John Gibson Lockhart, a Scottish writer, probably best known today as a severe critic of the poet John Keats. But for some reviewers, Wuthering Heights recalled Lockhart's novel The History of Matthew Wald from 1824, which does have some resemblances to Wuthering Heights. So the title character, for example, is in love with his cousin and childhood friend Catherine, in this case Catherine with a K. And in fact, later in adulthood, he actually kills Catherine's husband in a duel. And by the end of the novel, he ends up in a madhouse. So we can see why some reviewers of the time saw some contours of the Heathcliff and Cathy story in Lockhart's novel. But another thing that's worth keeping in mind is that Emily Brönte herself embeds throughout Wuthering Heights a number of literary allusions that project a kind of tradition of works that also would have served as a touchstone for early readers. So we have allusions to Greek mythology, Pilgrim's Progress, for example, traditional ballads, and several of Shakespeare's plays. In fact, the novel closes with an allusion to Richard III. So even if Wuthering Heights came across as unusual and strange when it was first published, readers were in fact given signals by Brönte herself that this novel was written by a well-read writer and one who situated the work within some familiar literary coordinates.